By now, you've started to see it. Not just the tricks, but the pattern behind them. The way nothing in her home was random. The way every small action carried weight, purpose, intention. Because what looked simple on the surface wasn't simple at all. It was designed. In part one, we stepped into her kitchen, into the systems that turned everyday ingredients into something more. Meals stretched, waste disappeared, and somehow, without ever calling it financial planning, she created stability that most people today are still chasing. But that was only the beginning. Because beyond the pantry, beyond the stove, there was an entirely different layer to how she lived. A layer where the garden wasn't just a hobby, it was production. Where scraps weren't trash, they were future resources. Where clothing didn't wear out, it evolved, adapted, extended. And this is where it gets even more interesting. Because the next set of tricks, the ones you're about to see, are the ones most people have completely forgotten. Not because they stopped working, but because we stopped looking closely enough to notice them. You might find yourself thinking this is too small to matter. But that's exactly the point. Because in her world, the small things were never small. They were systems, quiet ones, repeated daily, compounding over time, until the result looked like something most people would call luck. It wasn't luck, it was built. So as we move into part two, pay attention not just to what she's doing, but how she's thinking. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And if you want to keep uncovering the rest of these forgotten systems, make sure you're subscribed, because part 3 goes even deeper into what we've lost and how much of it is still right in front of us. The lemon and salt scrub, the 2-cent cleaning tool that outperforms a $4 spray. I want you to think about the last time you bought a cutting board cleaner. The specialty spray, the antibacterial formula, the bottle with the clean design that promises to eliminate 99.9% of bacteria. $4, maybe $5. Now I want you to think about the fact that Grandma solved this same problem in 1962, more effectively, according to food science, for 2 cents. She cut a lemon in half, poured a small mound of coarse salt onto the cutting board, and scrubbed the surface using the cut lemon as a sponge, the salt abrading mechanically, the citric acid sanitizing chemically, the lemon oils deodorizing naturally. Cold water rinse, stand it upright to dry. You might think this is useless today, but in 1962, it saved money. But here's the part that should genuinely surprise you. Citric acid is a proven antimicrobial agent. It's not folk wisdom, it's food science. The same bacteria that specialty cutting board sprays target with synthetic compounds, citric acid disrupts at the cellular membrane level. Grandma wasn't cutting corners on cleanliness. She was cleaning at full laboratory standard without paying for the laboratory's branding. And across an entire year of daily kitchen use, the cost difference between her method and yours is probably $30 to $40. That's not a small number. Multiplied by every cleaning product in the house, multiplied by every year. The lemon and salt scrub was just the first cabinet you open. The baking soda economy. 1 box, 9 uses, 0 specialty products. If you had to distill Grandma's entire cleaning philosophy into one ingredient, just one, it would be a small orange box that costs less than $1. Baking soda. Not a spray for the bathroom, not a separate formula for the kitchen, not a specialty product for the carpet and a different one for the refrigerator and another one for the laundry. 1 box. Mixed with water to a paste, scouring agent for sinks, tubs, and stovetops. Sprinkled on carpet before vacuuming, odor absorber that works better than most commercial powders. Left open in the refrigerator, air purifier that neutralizes odors at the molecular level rather than masking them. Dissolved in warm water, all-purpose counter cleaner. Added to laundry, booster that brightens whites and softens water. You might think this is useless today, but in 1962, it saved money. The average American household today spends over $500 annually on cleaning products. Most of that spending exists because of a marketing philosophy invented in the 1970s and accelerated through the 1980s. One specialized product for every specialized surface. Your granite gets one formula, your hardwood gets another, your glass gets a third, your bathroom tile gets a fourth. That philosophy didn't exist in 1962, and Grandma's bathroom was clean. Her kitchen was clean, her laundry was bright, her refrigerator didn't smell. All from one box. One product, 9 uses, cents per application. The question isn't whether baking soda works. The question is, who convinced us it didn't? Newspaper on glass. The streak-free window secret hiding in yesterday's paper. This one generates genuine disbelief almost every time, because it sounds wrong. It sounds like it should leave ink. It sounds like it should make things worse, not better. And then people try it, and they don't buy glass cleaner again. In 1962, Grandma cleaned every window in the house, every mirror, every glass surface with crumpled newspaper and a homemade solution of 2 tablespoons white vinegar in 1 cup of water. Not paper towels, newspaper. Because newspaper, it turns out, cleans glass better than paper towels by every measurable standard. The newsprint structure absorbs cleaning solution completely. No drips, no streaks. It leaves 0 lint or fiber behind. And the slight abrasive quality of the paper surface removes grease and haze that softer materials leave intact. The result? Streak-free, crystal-clear glass every time. You might think this is useless today, but in 1962, it saved money. But here's what makes this one especially sharp. The newspaper was a byproduct of a subscription already paid for. Using it to clean windows was extracting a second use from something that had already served its first purpose. No new purchase required, no specialty bottle, no paper towel roll. Just yesterday's paper doing one more useful thing before it left the house. That's the invisible economy running inside Grandma's newspaper subscription, and nobody was charging extra for it. The Borax secret, the laundry multiplier that cut detergent use in half. Here's something that should bother you if you do laundry for a family. The amount of detergent the label tells you to use, it's approximately double what you actually need if you know about one very specific addition. In 1962, in every laundry room, alongside the washing machine, there was a green and white box, 20 Mule Team Borax. 1 tablespoon added to a regular wash cycle did something remarkable. It boosted the cleaning power of laundry detergent so significantly that Grandma could use half the normal amount and still get a cleaner, brighter result. Because borax works as a water softener, and hard water, common in most American cities and suburbs, dramatically reduces the effectiveness of laundry detergent. Soften the water first, and the same amount of detergent works twice as hard. You might think this is useless today, but in 1962, it saved money. Half the detergent, across a family of 5, doing 8 to 10 loads per week, 52 weeks per year. Run that math. The borax, costing pennies per tablespoon, was effectively cutting the family's annual detergent expenditure by 40 to 50%. And here's the concept behind the concept, the one worth holding on to long after the laundry is done. A multiplier is something small and cheap that makes something large and recurring more effective. Grandma understood multipliers intuitively, in laundry, in cooking, in gardening, long before anyone attached economic language to the idea. She didn't spend less, she spent the same and got twice the result. That's not frugality, that's leverage. The Directional clothesline, the drying system that doubled clothing lifespan. This last one in our cleaning section sounds almost too simple to be meaningful. But stay with it, because there are 3 financial layers inside this one habit, stacked on top of each other. In 1962, Grandma's clothesline ran east to west across the backyard, not north to south, east to west. Because east to west orientation means the line receives maximum direct sun exposure from morning through late afternoon, optimizing drying time without requiring the laundry to be rehung or repositioned. She hung shirts by the tail, not the shoulders, because pinning at the shoulders stretches the fabric under the weight of wet material, distorting the fit over time. She folded sheets once lengthwise over the line, maximizing surface area for faster drying. You might think this is useless today, but in 1962 it saved money. Layer 1, 0 energy cost for drying versus the 45 cents per dryer load that modern households spend, adding up to nearly $200 annually for a typical family. Layer 2, clothes dried in open air last significantly longer than machine-dried clothes. The tumbling action inside a dryer is mechanically aggressive. It breaks down fabric fibers gradually, turn by turn, load by load. Sun-dried laundry maintains its fiber structure, its color depth, and its dimensional shape measurably longer. Layer 3, and this is the one nobody mentions, Grandma's intentional hanging technique, by avoiding shoulder distortion and heat damage, was actively extending the fit lifespan of every garment. Clothes that maintained their shape got worn longer before being replaced. One clothesline, 3 financial benefits running simultaneously, every single wash day. The overnight bean. Protein for pennies in a system nobody teaches. Here's a number I want you to hold. 1 pound of dried beans, approximately $1. Yield, when cooked, 6 cups. That's the equivalent of 3 to 4 cans of beans, which cost $5 to $6 at the grocery store today. For a family eating beans twice a week, every week for a year, the cost difference between dried and canned is over $250 annually. Grandma bought dried rice, always. The method: a cup of beans in a bowl, covered with cold water, left on the counter overnight. In the morning, drain, rinse, covered with fresh water in a heavy pot, cooked low and slow through the afternoon. The result, by 5 p.m., a full pot of protein-rich, deeply flavorful beans that cost her approximately 20 cents to produce. You might think this is useless today, but in 1962 it saved money. But here's the nutritional layer that makes this more than a budget trick. Beans paired with corn, rice, or wheat form a complete protein, one that provides all essential amino acids the human body requires. Grandma rotated this pairing constantly without ever reading a nutrition label because her mother had taught her and her mother's mother had taught her. She was feeding a family of 5 sufficient, high-quality protein. The stretched meatloaf, the recipe that made 1 pound of beef feed 7 people. Here's a story that comes with a punchline. Grandma's meatloaf was famous on the block. Neighbors asked for the recipe. Her children requested it by name. It was the meal that filled the kitchen with a smell that said home before anyone even sat down. Here's the secret she kept. It was only 60% meat. The rest, rolled oats, stale breadcrumbs from the heel jar, grated onion, grated carrot, 1 egg, a splash of milk. Bound together, shaped, glazed with a tomato and brown sugar mixture across the top, and baked low and slow until the whole thing was dense and fragrant and, somehow, more moist and more flavorful than a meatloaf made with pure beef. You might think this is useless today, but in 1962, it saved money. Here's the physics of why it works better. Ground beef, cooked alone, contracts as it loses moisture. It gets dense and dry. Oats and breadcrumbs absorb and hold moisture during cooking. The grated vegetables add natural sweetness and liquid. The result is a loaf that stays moist through the full bake and through reheating the next day. She was feeding 7 people with 1 pound of ground beef, a meal that should have required 2. But nobody at the table ever said, "This tastes like sacrifice." They said, "This is my favorite." That's the genius. The budget decision tasted like love, and nobody, not one person at that table, ever needed to know the difference. Cold process coffee, the overnight brew that cut coffee spending by 40%. This one is going to land differently depending on how serious you are about your morning coffee. Because what Grandma figured out in 1962, using a mason jar, cold water, and overnight time, is something modern cold brew coffee shops now charge $8 a cup for. The method? 1 cup of ground coffee, 4 cups of cold water, stirred in a mason jar, covered, and left at room temperature overnight. In the morning, strained through a cloth napkin or fine strainer into a second jar. What remained was a dark, smooth, intensely concentrated coffee extract, low in acidity, rich in flavor, that she diluted 1-to-1 with hot water for each cup. One batch, 8 to 10 cups of coffee, from the amount of grounds that normally made 4. You might think this is useless today, but in 1962 it saved money. Cold process extraction is more efficient than hot brewing. The longer contact time at lower temperature pulls more soluble compounds from the coffee per gram of grounds, meaning the same weight of coffee produces more cups at higher quality. A household that makes the shift to this method uses roughly 40% less coffee per year to produce the same number of cups. But here's the kicker most people miss completely. Cold processed coffee is significantly lower in acid than hot brewed coffee, which means Grandma wasn't reaching for antacids after her morning cup. Secondary health benefit, secondary financial saving. Every last drop of flavor extracted patiently overnight. Nothing rushed, nothing wasted, everything used. The cast iron seasoning ritual, the pan that outlived everyone who owned it. Here's a question worth sitting with. What is the last kitchen purchase you made that you genuinely expect to still be using in 50 years? In Grandma's kitchen, the answer was simple, and it was sitting on the stove every day. A cast iron skillet. Not because it was charming or traditional, because it was the most economically rational cookware decision a household could make. A cast iron skillet, properly maintained, does not wear out. There is no coating to degrade, no non-stick surface to chip, no structural integrity to compromise. It simply works forever. But the key word is maintained, and the maintenance was a ritual. After every use, wiped clean, never soaked, never submerged, never run through a dishwasher. While still warm from cooking, a small amount of lard or bacon fat from the tin can on the back of the stove was rubbed into the surface with a cloth. Returned to low heat for 2 minutes to allow the fat to polymerize, to chemically bond with the iron surface, building up the seasoning that is the pan's natural non-stick coating. You might think this is useless today, but in 1962 it saved money. Modern nonstick pans cost $20 to $60 and last 2 to 3 years before the coating degrades, at which point they not only stop working, but become potentially harmful to cook on. Grandma's cast iron, 1 purchase, 0 replacement cost, indefinite lifespan. And the seasoning, that natural cooking surface she maintained daily, was built partly from the bacon fat she was saving anyway. The cast iron was connected to the fat can, was connected to the Sunday roast, was connected to Monday's soup. Everything in her kitchen was connected. Everything fed everything else. That's not a collection of tricks, that's a system. and systems, unlike individual hacks, compound. The northeast corner, the free cold storage hidden in every basement. Here's something almost nobody knows about the house they grew up in. There's a room in it that stays cooler than anywhere else, consistently, passively, all year long. The northeast corner of the basement. No sun exposure from either direction, earth contacted on two walls, the last place in the house for heat to penetrate in summer, the most consistently cool zone from October through April. In 1962, Grandma knew exactly where this corner was, and she used it. Shelved, organized, and maintained, this corner became a passive cold storage zone for items that didn't need refrigeration but benefited from consistent cool temperatures: hard cheeses, cured meats, fermented items, homemade preserves, and root vegetables buried in sand. You might think this is useless today, but in 1962, it saved money. Every item stored in the cool basement corner was an item that didn't occupy refrigeration space and therefore didn't contribute to the energy cost of keeping a refrigerator cold. But the deeper concept here is this: Grandma understood that her house was a climate system. Different rooms had different thermal properties. The kitchen was warm. The north-facing bedroom was cool. The attic was hot and dry. The basement northeast corner was cold and stable. She matched storage type to storage location, using her house's natural temperature variation as a free preservation tool. Modern green architecture calls this passive thermal zoning. They charge tens of thousands of dollars to engineer it into new buildings. Grandma discovered it by paying attention to where her butter stayed freshest. The northeast corner, the free cold storage hidden in every basement. Here's something almost nobody knows about the house they grew up in. There's a room in it that stays cooler than anywhere else, consistently, passively, all year long. The northeast corner of the basement. No sun exposure from either direction, earth contacted on two walls, the last place in the house for heat to penetrate in summer, the most consistently cool zone from October through April. In 1962, Grandma knew exactly where this corner was, and she used it. Shelved, organized, and maintained, this corner became a passive cold storage zone for items that didn't need refrigeration but benefited from consistent cool temperatures: hard cheeses, cured meats, fermented items, homemade preserves, and root vegetables buried in sand. You might think this is useless today, but in 1962, it saved money. Every item stored in the cool basement corner was an item that didn't occupy refrigeration space and therefore didn't contribute to the energy cost of keeping a refrigerator cold. But the deeper concept here is this: Grandma understood that her house was a climate system. Different rooms had different thermal properties. The kitchen was warm. The north-facing bedroom was cool. The attic was hot and dry. The basement northeast corner was cold and stable. She matched storage type to storage location, using her house's natural temperature variation as a free preservation tool. Modern green architecture calls this passive thermal zoning. They charge tens of thousands of dollars to engineer it into new buildings. Grandma discovered it by paying attention to where her butter stayed freshest. The Candle Drip Collection. When spent candles made new ones. Here's something most people call an empty candle stub. Grandma called it raw material. Every candle in her home, used for atmosphere, for reading light, for power outages, burned over a small dish or tray. Every drop of wax that fell was collected, not cleaned, collected. By month's end, she had a small accumulation of wax drippings, mismatched colors, different textures, various fragrances combined into something new. She melted them together in a tin can suspended in hot water, strained out any debris through cheesecloth, poured the clean liquid wax into a glass jar around a new wick made from a length of cotton twine dipped in melted wax, cooled, set, lit, a new candle, from nothing. You might think this is useless today, but in 1962 it saved money. Recycling wax drippings back into functional candles extended the total value of every candle purchased by 20 to 30%. But the method also produced something uniquely beautiful because the mixed wax colors swirled together into marbled patterns that no manufacturer could replicate. Her nothing candles were the prettiest ones in the house. And here's the philosophical layer that matters most. She refused to call something used up just because its primary form was exhausted. The candle that could no longer stand and burn could still give light, reshaped, remade, restored. How many things in your life have you written off that still had something left to give? The nighttime window curtain, the passive solar trick that cut heating bills. Here's a home energy concept that modern architects charge thousands to engineer. Grandma did it with a heavy curtain and a consistent bedtime routine. In winter, she operated on a simple principle. Glass loses heat. Fabric holds it. A single-pane window, standard in 1962 homes, loses heat at roughly 10 times the rate of an insulated wall. Every night that window sat bare, the room leaked warmth into the frozen dark outside. So at dusk, without fail, Grandma drew the heavy curtains, thick wool or layered cotton, floor to ceiling, held close to the glass. In the morning, as soon as sunlight hit the window, they were pulled back to capture the solar gain, the passive warmth that even a winter sun provides through glass if you give it the chance. You might think this is useless today, but in 1962 it saved money. This daily cycle, capturing solar heat during the day, blocking radiant heat loss at night, could reduce winter heating costs by 10 to 15% in a typical 1960s home. For a family spending serious money on heating oil through a Midwestern or Northeastern winter, that percentage was a real dollar figure, achieved by moving fabric panels twice a day. But here's what should genuinely stop you about this one. The concept is called passive solar design. It's taught in architecture schools. It's written about in sustainability literature. It's described as an innovation of modern green building. Grandma had been doing it since 1941, with curtains she sewed herself on a schedule she kept without thinking. The innovation was forgetting what she knew. The zone heating philosophy, the heating strategy that never needed a smart thermostat. Here's a modern concept you've probably seen marketed for $200 in a sleek white device. Zone heating. Heat only the rooms you're using. In 1962, Grandma did this without a single piece of technology, without an app, without a subscription, without a smart home hub. She just kept doors closed. The bedrooms stayed shut and unheated during the day. They'd be warm enough by bedtime, and heating them while empty was, in her view, simply absurd. The parlor opened only for company or Sunday afternoon family time, the back room and basement cold from October through April. Heat lived where the family lived. The kitchen in the morning, the main living area in the afternoon and evening, the bedrooms at night. You might think this is useless today, but in 1962 it saved money. Modern HVAC systems set to whole home heating pump warm air into every room, including rooms that are empty 20 hours a day. That's an enormous energy waste, so normalized we've stopped noticing it. Grandma's zone approach reduced fuel consumption by 30 to 40% compared to whole home heating by simply refusing to heat what didn't need heating. Most people completely miss this part. This also created a physical intuition about energy. When heat is a resource you manage consciously, rather than a utility you forget you're paying for, you make different choices, better ones. A closed door was a financial decision, made 30 times a day, without effort. The cumulative effect? Every single month from October through March. That's not a smart thermostat. That's wisdom wearing a doorknob.